Let me put you on game. Don't listen to people who lose or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed, go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pursuit of Wealth podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Jacob Marcovitz. He's a local real estate agent here in East Idaho. His @ is East Idaho Jacob.
Yes.
If you guys want to follow him on Instagram, he does some really cool videos. But we're going to get to know Jacob a little bit better. Get to know, what got Jacob into real estate, what is he doing today, and how is he running a successful business? Because I do think you are running a very successful business. So where did life start for young Jacob?
Starting off the bat.
Yes.
Well, so right out of high school, went to college.
Okay.
Went to good old Rick's College, right?
Okay.
Yep. Off the bat there with some of my friends. I just went to college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I started business MBA, just business on that side. And so after being there for a little bit, I had done a lot of reading, like self-development. And I was just trying to figure out more than anything else, like long-term, where do I want to put my money? And how could I get to this point? Like, is it stocks? Is it real estate? Crypto wasn't a huge thing at that time just yet.
Yeah.
Should have been thinking about that though at the time.
You wouldn't have to sell real estate.
Yeah, I know, right? Shoot. But I think once I got there, I was like, okay, real estate's a really good way to at least get started with like what I wanted to be able to accomplish between like cash flow, hopefully not being able to have to work as much in the future. But with the cash flow thing, I was like, stocks just didn't interest me as much. And not that stocks aren't great, but I was like, real estate is like attractive to me. I'm like, I like real estate. Yeah. So right then I kind of ended my last semester up there, became a college dropout, LOL. And
how many years did you do?
Dude, I did 2 semesters up there, the trimesters or whichever schedule they were on. So not very long. Did terrible in my classes. Nothing towards that school. Just wasn't the right place for me by any means either. Yeah. But I just didn't have the passion for it. I was like, what am I really going to go use this for? Like, I do think that's kind of a dumb degree. Nothing towards anybody going after it.
I was in a similar boat. I went to college and I was studying business and finance, thinking that I was going to need like a business degree. I did 2 years, so I stuck it out a little bit longer than you.
Yeah, commitment. You're committed.
But it's cool because I do remember like you've always been. We went to high school together.
Yep. Were we just 1 year apart?
Yeah, I was 1 year older than you.
Okay.
So we not like good friends, but we knew of each other and we knew about each other. I remember running into you, in the gym. Yeah, when we were both back here. I think
that's when we really both started talking more. Because where'd you go to school at?
For college, Phoenix.
Yeah. Phoenix.
So, yeah. So I was gone for like 4 years. Even though I only went to school for 2 years, but I was gone for 4. But when I came back, we kind of reconnected at the gym, and I remember you early on, like you were reading a lot of books, and you would talk about, you were thinking like, without ever having money, you were thinking about what you needed to do with your money.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool.
Right. Well, that's the thing is I felt like, okay, I found the finance like vehicle that I want to put my money into long-term. Yeah. Now it's like, now you have to go make the money to be able to go purchase that stuff, right? Yep. And I feel like that's the hard part is I feel like so many people are like all across the place of like, oh, I'm a crypto guy, I'm a stock guy. Like I feel like you have to, not that you can't diversify across those, but you have to commit to one that I think is the bigger thing for you. For sure. To an extent.
You need to be an expert at one.
I've tried to day trade. It doesn't go well for me on that part versus just like looking at real estate and finding real estate deals. Like that is just such a more solid bet than just trying to find a stock that you're thinking, unless you're doing like long-term investment.
Unless you're passionate about that and you're willing to learn about it.
Yeah. If you're willing to go dedicate, 10,000 hours to become a master at day trading, I'm sure you can get great at it if the passion's there for sure. Yeah.
I had a buddy that was doing options trading. Right. And he was like trying to get me into it and stuff. And I didn't learn about it or anything. I would just like, try to follow the buzz. And like, I lost like 15 grand like 2 years ago doing it. I'm like,
still writing that off.
That's not mine. Yep. Like, it's not my field. I'm going to stick to real estate. So I do think it's important to like have a specialty. Yeah. Like diversify, you can invest in stocks and do that stuff, but you should have one that you're really comfortable about, that and understand, right? That you can make decisions.
Yeah. I know that everybody's like, oh, you got to diversify separate eggs in different baskets. But I'm like, really? I do like I can't remember who says it, but they're like, put all your eggs in one basket and watch the basket close. Yeah. And that's why I'm like, yes, you should diversify, but I'm like, real estate, I think you find your passion and then that's the one that you obviously dive into the most out of anything.
For sure.
For all of us.
I agree. So why did you think real estate was that for you?
So right when I found out, I was like, okay, like in cars was the biggest thing in the beginning for a lot of this stuff to that extent. Okay. We all have our thing that starts off. And I was like, man, if I wanted to be able to own a Bugatti one day, I'm like, what is the wealth vehicle that gets you there? Because like this was in the early days of Instagram, and you'd see all these people posting these accounts, and like, they would just be like, they wouldn't show who they really are, but they would have these types of vehicles. And you're like, what are these guys doing?
Yeah.
Like it's before e-commerce like really took off to that extent too. And I'm like, okay, how are these guys doing this? So read through all the books, and I was like, okay, real estate seems like the solid way that it could actually be achievable one day.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's where I want to dive into. And then that led to the real estate career. I was like, okay, so I want to learn as much as I can about real estate. I want to buy in my local market off the bat. So I'm like, obviously becoming an agent to be involved in it more day to day would be the best way.
Yeah.
But the funny thing at the time was too, like I was like, okay, I'm going to become an agent. It didn't have anything to do with my mom, which it was nice to have her obviously once I got into the business.
Yeah.
But it was literally just a matter of like, okay, I don't know how much I'm going to make doing this, but I want to go this route, which was the funny thing to me. I was like, I dived into a career that I didn't even understand the pay structure when I first got into to that extent.
Most don't.
But no,
Most
I don't think any do off the bat to an extent.
What I like though that you said is you reverse engineered it from the beginning. You said, what do I want? Well, I want to get to a point where I can make a decision if I want to buy a Bugatti or Lamborghini or whatever these things are. And you're like, cool, that's what I really want. How do I get there? What vehicle do I need to be in? Like, what career vehicle do I need to be in to get to that point? Because likely becoming an engineer, or that's probably
not that you couldn't.
No, you could, but you're like, maybe what can I get there quicker? And you started reading the books and you started listening and figuring out what these people were doing. And you're like, real estate sounds like the vehicle that I should be in. Right. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people like just get into a career to get into a career, but you went with like a long-term purpose.
Yeah.
Like,
which it may seem weird to some people. Like in my mind, I always feel like everybody's the same way. Like I see three people through my lens. I'm like, oh, everybody's reading. But then you're like, oh, I guess maybe not that many people actually do this stuff. But it just seemed like the logical way to break it down was like, okay, if you want to get to this point, then, getting the rentals, but then how do you get the rentals at that point too? Right. Yeah. And not that I have a ton by now any means either, but like now I feel like I have the income to start doing more. So even though the market kind of sucks right now for it. Yeah. But, like what we've talked about between looking for land and just waiting for deals, like at least the opportunities are still there to that extent.
Absolutely. And how old are you?
So I'm 25, but I'll be 26 next month. So getting old.
Yep. 20. I just turned 27 this year. It's like, I think we forget about that a lot of the time is like how young we are. Right. Give us 10 years and you'll really kind of see what we're doing. Well, we're building the foundation for everything.
And it's hard not to compare. Like I know that you obviously have a lot of people on here, but like obviously we have some people here that have a ton of real estate that are a younger age. And it's hard to not like look at that and be like, man, I want to be there tomorrow. Yeah. And sometimes that just puts unrealistic expectations out there too, to an extent.
Absolutely. I get those active guys give me FOMO.
Oh, for sure. Like, for sure.
I'm like, man, what is Garrett doing to own these properties? And I had Garrett on the podcast like a few weeks ago. And I've told him that, like, he's like, dude, like when I was 26, 27, I didn't have these properties. Like, you hit that exponential growth curve. And he's been doing what he's been doing for 10 years.
Right. Yeah, I think I remember with like Chandler, because like I think I saw some of his earlier YouTube videos when he first started posting, like Meet Kevin had a video with him. And I think at the time Chandler only had like 40 units or something along those lines. But then you look at how fast that can explode. Oh, yeah. So it's like, be impatiently patient, right?
Yes, yep.
Which sucks.
It does. Especially when we're in it and we see it and we see those guys doing it and we're like, man, you just gotta, but it's just, you give it time. It's
it does,
like,
yeah.
I look back and I'm like, man, I should have bought so many houses when there's low interest rates. And I'm like, well, I didn't have the funds I have now. So like, I can't be mad that I didn't because it just wasn't a thing. Like I wasn't ready.
No,
and our time will come.
Right. Well, I remember looking at a fourplex that was for sale by owner on Stevens Drive back in like late 2018, most likely. And I was like on for 405. I looked at the rents. I'm like, this doesn't make sense at all. Now, hindsight, I'm like, man, I wish I would have just jumped all over that. I don't think I had my 2 years of tax returns at the time to do it, but I still could have found the money. Yeah. So, like,
and again, we didn't know what we didn't know.
No,
you didn't know you could find money and bring in partners. Story about that. But so you decide to go into real estate. You get your real estate career. What happens once you get licensed?
So right off the bat, like I said, my mom was a real estate agent too. And I think, so I obviously started with the team on that part. I think the driving factor with that to an extent was like, I was like, okay, my mom's on a team. Yeah. And I kind of did follow that step. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing to an extent. Like, just got licensed. Okay.
Yeah.
And they don't teach you anything when you're getting licensed. It has nothing to do with actually selling real estate. So I feel like I followed her in that regard, and I joined like a great team again too, to that extent. Cause you know, their leaders, still the number one top producing agent in our market. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So like, great idea to follow, I think, in my opinion, because I'm like, okay, I should be able to learn pretty quickly from these guys.
For sure.
Over time.
Yeah.
And then like, I think after like 3 or 4 months of me joining though, my mom did go out as a solo agent.
Yeah.
And like, even for her, she was number 27, I think, in our MLS for top producing agents this last year. And
awesome.
so like, I look at that, it's awesome to see. Like, I obviously learned so much from my mom, but again, when I started, it was like, I need to be on a team to start learning what to do. Like finding deals.
Yeah.
So that's what made me originally join that team that I was on.
And how long were you with the team?
So it would have been July 2017 to November 2019.
Okay. So a little over 2 years.
Longer than I wanted to be. And it sucks because like at the time I had no risk. Like I really had no debt at all at that point. So it was like, I could have sprung off of that sooner to that extent.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, I was like, I think that team made you want to be reliant on them to an extent. Like,
for sure.
There was a lot of things that didn't make you want to go find your own business when you're with a team with different structures, depending on the team.
Yeah.
So not to say it's every team.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like after so long, like they finally brought me something that was like, any of the business that you find, like it's ours, we're keeping it. If you try to take anything from us, we're going to charge you $10,000 per person.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, first of all, this isn't going to hold up in like court. Like I'd really love to see that play out, but it was finally the push I needed. Like I was like, this would be like, even for open houses, they were like, well, you never know if someone recognizes our name and that's why they came. And I was like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if I stay here, I'm really going to hinder my ability, because I knew I was going to leave at some point, but it was just the push that I needed to get out of there.
Yeah. Was that scary for you?
No. So like, it was funny to me because like literally that agreement shows up on my desk. I didn't know it was coming. I saw it. I'm like, nope. I quit the next day on that team, sent him an email and told him I was just done, and went in and met with him and left the team. And like at the time, like this is pre-COVID, right?
Yeah.
November 2019. I go to Dubai next month, get back, COVID happens. So like, I don't think it was scary, but it was like, okay, like COVID didn't scare me as much as I think like some other people maybe in different areas. Like for our area, it just wasn't a scary situation.
Yeah.
And so like got back and I was like, I was pretty inspired after that, because I think a lot of those guys wanted to see me fail to an extent too.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them. And so like, it really did light a fire in me. Like I got to hit this level of production this year, or else like I'm going to be upset with myself.
Yeah.
Right.
You had it. And I think you need that to really like there's studies done that you can't just want something, but if you're scared or trying to prove something,
right,
you're a lot more likely to like actually hit your goals.
Yeah. And it sucks, because like the longer you're in this, sometimes finding that can be difficult. I think sometimes too, like last year was just a weird year for me because we moved so many times.
Yeah.
And like my business, thankfully, like I did less deals, but I did almost the same in GCI. But at the end of the year, I was like, I hate to look back and say I didn't do as good as the year prior.
Yeah.
And so that always pisses me off too.
Oh yeah.
I think we're all that way.
Yeah. You got, because you can't be stagnant, especially in this career. Like
no,
you got to be shooting to always be increasing. And that's hard though. Cause like at what point do you not move the goalpost? There's a book about it, because it's like you do want to always be moving the goalpost, but you also got to decide like where do the goalposts like stop?
Yeah, and it kind of just depends on what your goal is long term. Like I'm still back and forth on like whether I would want to do what you're doing with a team long term, or if I like the idea of having like, and again, it just depends on your scenario, but I like the idea of having an admin team around me and still selling the real estate.
Yeah.
Not that you don't sell real estate, but I just would rather be involved with everybody at that point. So like I'm not to the point where I'm like, oh, I want a buyer's agent or any of that type of stuff. And that's not to say that it's right or wrong. It's just where I am mentally.
Yeah. And looking back, like I always have thoughts like, should I do it differently?
Right.
What if I disbanded the team and I just ran an admin team? I could run a pretty high producing admin team.
See,
it's like, and your profit margins are higher. So it's you never know what route is the right route.
No,
but I think like
different goals though.
Yeah. It just depends on what your goal is. Yeah. I think that's why we've done it the way we've done it, because our goal is to, with a high producing admin team, my goal is eventually I want to have a team here and a team in Phoenix.
Right.
So it's like I got to build a scalable
like the
team.
Weather, Anthony?
My wife, she actually gave me an ultimatum. Not really, but she's like, "Hey, this is my last full summer here or full winter here. So you better figure it out. You've been talking about going to Arizona for a while. You better figure that out. So I got to buy a house there. I told her to wait till the end of the year because, you know, I want to see how the market is.
See what the market is down there first on that
but,
one.
That is the goal. And so that's why I chose the vehicle that I am. But I've looked back prior to, and I was like, man, did I do the right thing? Should I have gone heavy on the admin? And
well, and for your scenario, like if you're going to be in two different markets, you have to have that.
Have to.
And it's just different. Like, again, I think it just depends on like what you said is having it as a vehicle. Like it is an investment. It's different. Like I will have more hours involved with the way I'm going, but even as a team, like you're going to have just as many hours involved. So you're kind of, it's the same no matter what. It's like, do you want the headaches of a team or do you not? Like, I think that's what it comes down to.
For sure. Personality too. I think like, what do you enjoy with the business? Do you enjoy actually selling it? Do you enjoy managing people? Like
the best part and the worst part of this business is finding new clients.
Yeah.
Because it sucks in the process. But like once you find people, like when I was on a team, it was really weird getting leads and stuff. Like the relationship never seemed amazing to an extent. Like there's just something weird about it.
For sure.
Like there's this middle party and right.
You're trying to win them over. Why other agents are trying to win them over.
Well, so with the team, like there was always just a weird aspect. And I don't know if it was the idea that like, man, these people would never be my people. Like it feels weird on the relationship with the client.
Yeah.
Versus, once I got out of there, it was like, man, all of my past client relationships seem so much more like just connected to an extent. Like I feel so much closer with my clients now than I did when I was on those teams.
Interesting.
So like, it was just a different feeling in that regard.
For sure.
So finding the people, like once you find them though, like that's why we're in this business, right? Is to help people. And once you find them, dude, it's a great feeling.
Oh yeah. And once you find the clients that, you know, turn into friends, it's like
those biggest thing.
Yeah. And like, that's why we try to coach our agents on is like, you guys want to close more deals? Go make more friends.
Right.
You don't need to search for business. You just need to make more friends.
Which sucked from when we started real estate.
Yeah.
It's like, go talk to your sphere. Okay. None of my sphere can buy. Okay. Go talk to your parents' sphere. My mom's a real estate agent.
Yeah. You're like, who am I supposed to
going to go talk to?
So the team was definitely the best route for you to go. Early
to
on.
an extent. Yeah. To an extent there. Yeah. Kind of stuck.
So you never joined your mom. Like after you left, you never thought to like join. Did you think to join your mom?
No, like with her business, like the reason she left that team is like her business is all referral. So for like the split she was paying to stay there at that point, like made no sense, like versus just leaving and being able to do 50 to 60 deals a year by yourself.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny with her because like, man, she still has so much free time. Like she has no admin. It's literally just her.
It's crazy.
And it's crazy how much time she still has.
Yeah.
Like I give her a lot of crap that I'm like,
maybe
just sleeping on your couch right now. And like, she's such a hard worker and she just finds the time.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, we never had like, we'll help each other if we're out of town, right? Show houses for each other. But outside of that, no, we never really wanted to go that route.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of the same reason as like, we'd rather both be high producers separate
on your own
to an extent.
Yeah. And it's hard doing business with family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've like, you know,
wait, your mom's an agent too, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
My stepmom is an agent. She's on the team and we have actually a pretty good dynamic.
Right.
You know, she lets me do my thing and, she loves the team. She thinks it's like, she's like, man, she spent 20 years in working for the Department of Energy, kind of like INL stuff.
Oh, okay.
And she's like, I wish I would have like real estate's been awesome. And we've made it pretty, you know, teams make it pretty easy to produce. And so she's like, this is like the easiest career for me to compared to like what I was doing for the last 20 years. And so she loves
more security clearance if she needed it when she was out there, right? It's a little easier.
So, and she loved, like they've been real estate investing for a long time. So she loves this industry.
Right.
But so you started on your own, went solo.
Yep.
What was that first year for you? What'd you do production wise first year?
So I think GCI wise, I could get the volume, but I think I ended up doing like 125, 135 that first year.
Okay.
And then the year after that was 234. And then, so that would have been
2020.
Oh no. Or 2020 was 135.
Okay.
2021, I think, was 234. 2022 was like 215.
Okay.
And so like, which again pissed me off to an extent, but, like this year, like on track, like I've been able to commit so much more time to working. Like I've worked a lot more this year. Like I think I've got 8 closed this year so far.
That's awesome.
And like, I'm just on track to do a lot more volume wise compared to where I was last year. Cause again, my mind was all over the
Yeah.
place, just with the market adjusting. And we were debating whether we were selling our house, keeping our house, going to finish the basement. Like there was just a lot of stuff going on,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out what made sense at that time.
For sure.
So,
well, and you were playing kind of the investor game of you bought a fourplex, then you bought this other house, and you were building a house, and
right,
going to have some rentals and stuff. So that probably took you away from production a little bit, focusing on that stuff.
Hindsight sucks, but that house, like we bought it in January. If we would have just gone and flipped it, and I wanted to do this, my girlfriend wanted to live in it,
Yeah.
and she won. But I'm like, it sucks looking back because we could have flipped that house and made $100,000 right off if we would have just jumped on it.
Yep.
But at the same time, too, we didn't know that we were getting that next house by any means either. So it's kind of hard to weigh that up.
It was a very, and I look back, it's like always, hindsight's always 20/20.
The write-offs though, like between depreciation and just like your interest too, though, like it totally makes sense. Like I break even basically on that property, but I'm like, with all the write-offs this year's helped me out so much. Alone with just that.
In your fourplex story, we'll dive into that because I think that's a really cool story. You bought that at a really good time.
Yeah. Luckily.
Yeah. So, you basically go year 1, you double year 2, year 3, you kind of stay right about the same. I'm gonna say you stay the same.
Yeah. For sure.
What was your main, coming from a team where a team supported you with lead flow and stuff? What was your focus? What did you decide to do to focus on business?
So database right off the bat, because like obviously I wasn't gonna, like they didn't own my past clients, and I still had a lot better of a relationship with my past clients.
Yeah.
That's not to say that like, they've gone 1 or 2 of them in the
Yeah.
past. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna happen.
Yep.
So, but so database was the biggest thing there. Sphere was huge because I started getting a lot of referrals from some of my past clients that were my friends that I had brought in at that time too.
Yep.
And so between there and like open houses and investors.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny because like I track my business. I know where all my sources come from. Right. And I have my real estate coach too. And we were just talking the other day, and I was like, okay, let's look back. Cause I've called so many investors.
Yeah.
And I was like, how many deals have I actually done from like how much time I've put into this?
Yeah.
And I looked back, I tracked it. I was like, okay, that many deals from this. And I was like, I was calling probably 20 investors a day to 50 investors a day. And then I went back and looked at my open houses, and I wasn't seriously doing the open houses at that time. It was just like every now and then I'd have, 1 to 2, right?
Yeah,
And did
yeah.
like maybe 8. But then the deals I had from those was like half of them I had gotten like, so if I did 8, I closed 4 deals. And so I was like, okay, so like that's obviously working more than like the investors is. So why am I putting so much time into investors when there's other ways to market to them? They're less time consuming, right?
Yeah.
Especially with investors. Like they're the hardest people to please, I think, for real estate on that
Well, and
side.
they have so many, they're less committed
right
to an agent.
Well, yeah. And you just look at the times they bought. You think about all the write-offs they're getting. And if they don't 1031 that, then they're going to have depreciation recapture. So like there's a lot of things that go into that on that side for selling.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, okay, like where can I really focus in, and where am I best? Am I better on the phone, or am I better in person?
I love that it was, maybe that came from your coach, but you went back and you tracked your business.
Yeah.
That's so important because, Tom, I don't know if it's Tom Ferry. One of them says,
Probably is.
He says everything. Run plays that work. It's like so many times people get caught up in running plays that don't work.
Right.
And it's like, you're only going to know if they work if you go back and you actually track your business.
Right.
But if you're in a football game and you keep running the ball and they have a great run defense and you're not getting any yardage, are you just going to continue to run the ball?
Right.
It's like, no, you got to look at like passing the ball. You got to switch it up. And so it makes no sense when you think of it as a sports aspect. It makes no sense to continue to do something that's not working. But we as business owners do it all the time.
For sure. And I think everybody's always into like, how can I not talk to people? Like, what can I do to not talk to people and find more business? Like, where's the magic pill for that? And I think people are always so caught up like, oh, this is the next thing. Like, this is what I got to do. And it's like, it's so easy to look back and be like, okay, this is what works. Just do it. Like, it sucks in the moment because like everybody wants instant business.
Yep.
Like I'm frustrated too because I get that way as well. It's like I've got, I think, 30 hot leads. Like I have a separate pipeline that I keep that I check every day that are people that I think are going to do something this year.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm always looking at there. I'm like, I've got 5 to 8 of those people that like, it's just a matter of finding the right property.
Yep.
But like people just get so impatient moving lead sources to an extent.
Well, a new lead source comes out and everybody jumps on it. Like, oh, this is the magic pill.
Right.
Or like, Jacob closed 30 deals from this last year. And so I might be able to do the same thing, but it's like, you got to look at what are you good at? Right. You might have been, if you weren't good in person, open houses might not be the route that you'd go.
Right. Yeah.
You got to focus on like, one, what you're good at, and two, like what you're willing to be consistent at.
Right.
And
and there's trends at the time, right? Like Zillow leads were really great for a little bit there, and now comparably,
they're really expensive.
Yeah, expensive. And do you get as quality of leads now
Yeah.
at this point compared to like when everybody wanted to buy, right?
Absolutely.
So that's definitely the hard part there versus like saying, okay, I can go work at an open house for 2 hours. Like this is the part that always gets me.
Yeah.
You're going to go to an open house. You're going to do it for 2 hours. What other goals in your life? Like, are you trying to read? Like, oh, I'm just going to go sit there for 2 hours. You could go read there for 2 hours. Like, even if nobody shows up, you still got something done.
Yeah.
And like, I'm always like, what's the alternative on a Saturday? Like, you're going to be at your house sitting on the couch. You're not going to go work out. Like, you're not going to be doing anything productive. So you might as well go do it at an open house.
Yep.
Like, that's the part that always gets me too. Cause like I have a lot of agents that are like, this never works. And then I did one open house and I picked up 3 people from it, all 3 of them under contract.
Yeah.
I'm like, it works.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's time. It's like going to the gym to lift weights the first time. You might not see the results right away, but it's like, if you continue to do it, it's just be consistent.
Right.
And I get so frustrated too, because agents are like, wow, I just wasted 2 hours. I had people that came up and like, it's not a waste.
Yeah.
It's never a waste. One, you had conversations. It's
right.
like you're bettering your skill. You're bettering your knowledge. You're getting better at talking to people. You can't think of it as a wasted time.
No.
It's like, this is your business. You need to work on it.
And you just never, like, somebody could come through that said, yeah, I have an agent that I'm working with. They like you. And then long term, they end up not wanting to work with their agent and they come back to you. Or somebody sees your sign multiple times and like, man, this guy's doing a lot. And they call you. Like, you just can't track that stuff. Like, there's no ROI on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the hard part for a lot of things too. Is like, how do you put an ROI on this?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a lot of stuff you can't.
Yeah.
Like, it's just stuff that you might chalk up to fate happening at some point.
Yep.
So,
I think stacking the odds in your favor.
Right.
That's what you need to be focused on. It's
like, are you going to not do it? And then what are you going to replace it with? Like, if you're not going to do it, what lead source are you going to replace it with?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And is it a source that works? Like, we know open houses work if you do enough of them. Like, I've been doing 3 to 4 a week is what I do right now. And I'm like, I can guarantee that off of open houses this year, at the rate I'm going from what I've closed from them, I think I'll do 30 to 40 deals potentially from just open houses.
It's incredible.
So I'm like, and we can confirm that later this year. I feel pretty confident it'll at least be in that range.
Yeah.
If I keep doing 3 to 4 a week.
I'm confident.
Because we're not even really in the busy season yet either to that extent. So
did you do some last weekend?
I did, yeah.
How was your turnouts?
So I did 3 and I picked up 4 people that I honestly think I'll end up doing something with. And like usually for our market, this is the hard part because I'm always like, Tom Ferry talks about doing mega open houses.
Yeah.
I don't think they work in our market.
Yeah.
I think you'd spend too much money on something that just wouldn't turn out. Like, you got 50 people showing up to an open house in California.
Yeah.
We know that doesn't happen here. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not the norm. But getting anywhere from 2 to 5 groups is pretty normal in our market.
For sure.
So
this last weekend was, we had a few open houses that the team ran, and 2 of them, one of them in our Ivywood subdivision, had over 20 plus people.
Oh, really?
Show up.
See, and it's, I wish there was a math to this.
I know, I do too.
I did one on 24th. It was my mom's listing. She did one on it. She had 20 groups through. I did one on it. I had 11 groups through, and I'm like, what the hell is happening here?
Yeah.
Like, I wish there was something to it.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. And people get mad. It's like, did we not market it enough on this one? It's like, no, some people, we do the same exact thing for everyone.
Yeah.
It's just some people, it depends on, maybe they're going out of town that weekend. You just don't know what people's schedules are like.
Location, I think always plays
is a big one.
Huge. That shocks me out. Not that Ivywood's not a nice division.
Yeah.
Like, it is a very nice division for south of town.
Yeah.
But like, even 24th Street, like, it's not the nicest. Like, it's nice in the numbered streets. So like, those homes have a lot of character. So it doesn't shock me on that part.
Yeah.
But man, like, even like Josh Mitchell, for example, I remember he did a house over in the Meadows.
Yeah.
And it had been on for like 150 days. This was back in like 2018. He had like 40 groups come through the place. And I'm
crazy.
Like, wow.
Yeah. It's one that surprised me is last weekend too, we did one on 52nd over by Thunder Ridge.
Yep.
And we literally had it on the market Friday. So we only had about like 8 hours of marketing for that. And we had like 20 something people show up to that too. Right. And so I'm like, that we didn't even get the full marketing out that we usually do for it.
Right.
And we still had a really good turnout.
It makes you feel bad, huh? It's like, my marketing doesn't work.
Yeah, it's just like,
people are just going on
people are
Zillow.
going to come if they're going to come, it depends on their schedule.
It does.
But so I think it's really cool. I think it's awesome that that's what you've chose to focus on. And you're trying to do, so 3 to 4 a week?
3 to 4 a week. So I'm trying to do 36 a quarter typically on that part. So you can preload some of that. Like last quarter, I think I did a lot of those in the beginning, 3 to 4 to 5 open houses.
Okay.
And then it tapered down to just 3 a week at some point just to hit the 36.
Are you doing them all on Saturdays?
So Fridays, Saturdays, I'm working on Sundays to see if it works in our market. The last Sunday one I did was back in winter though.
Okay.
And it just, I think doesn't work here in winter sometimes on that part. So
for sure.
Like location matters on them to an extent, I think on some of those days, like Fridays, especially, I feel like if you're in a good location, you can definitely pick up quite a bit more.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens with Sundays on that one.
I think price point too factor, like Friday ones.
So like price point wise on those days, I don't think the price point honestly matters as much.
Yeah.
I think it depends if you're like thinking to yourself, like, oh, I want to hopefully work with someone that, is actually looking in the market a little more realistically. So like 400, 393 or whatever's our average purchase price right now. So it's like, do I want to stay in that range and find someone that may not be contingent on like a house selling? I think it can vary. Like I've done more expensive open houses and you have people that are just like not in a rush to an extent, which is fine. Right. Yeah. But like if you're trying to build your career off of it, I think doing it in those ranges that move a little bit more makes more sense.
I do too. And I think I haven't really tested this out, but my theory would be if you did an open house on like, let's say a lower end home, lower price point home, potentially those people that are going to qualify for that or looking for that might work on the weekends. So doing a Friday night after 5, like 5 to 8, you might get the buyers that are actually interested in that property,
right?
Which we know, typically open houses don't sell the property, but you're going to get those buyers that are out looking and probably engaged that I think you maybe miss out with on just doing a Saturday. So I like that you're kind of trying to figure out what days and times and
that's the hard part. Like, I don't think there's a perfect time. Like, I don't either. Honestly, like I think you have to look at it and say like, okay, I want to do this many open houses this year. I want to meet this many people and I want to convert this many people.
Yeah.
And then you just have to do them because the flow is going to change on them. There's going to be weeks where you have those 20 groups through and you're like, dang, this is great. And then you're going to do it and have nobody through.
Yeah.
But like, I even looked back and like, I think for last year I did like 45 grand in GCI from open houses.
Wow.
And it was like from 4 or 5 transactions, I think on that part. And I had only done like, I think 10 open houses.
Wow.
And I was just like, man, like it's, once you look at it dollar wise, and you're like, even if I'm sitting here for 2 hours, like let's tack up the time and divide that right. And it's like, you're getting a lot of money to just sit there and meet people and help them.
Yeah.
And so that's the way to make it feel a little better once you have a little bit of a track record and can say, okay, this is how much I make from doing these, right?
I think in the way that you're doing it, Alex Hormozi talks about do something enough where it'd be unreasonable for you not to succeed or to not be good at it, know? And I think that's kind of the model you're taking. I do think that you're kind of unique in the fact that, you're very knowledgeable about the market. You're very good people-to-people interactions. So, like a new agent's probably not going to go out and see the exact success that you're seeing.
No.
But I think they can get there over time.
Right.
That's like consistently sitting open houses.
Dude, did you see me when I started real estate? Like I couldn't even grow and I can still barely grow any facial hair, but like, no, like I was full suited out every time. Like I looked really young. And it's funny because I look back now and I'm like, man, if I could have had the knowledge I have now at that time, and we all do this, but I'm like, it would have just been so much easier as a younger person.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, if I was going to start in real estate at a younger age, that would be my main focus is understanding and learning the market.
Yep.
Right. Like understanding what actually affects interest rates to that extent too, because there's a lot of agents that I would guarantee don't know what actually impacts interest rates.
Yeah.
Which is like, you need to be kind of a master of everything. I know we're not lenders by any means, but like you have to understand what affects that market to give good advice.
Yeah. And you need to know the sub-markets of every price point and inventory levels. And, it's like.
You and I always have this conversation about marry the house, date the rate. It's such dumb advice. Like in the end, because like even with a first-time home buyer, like ICCU has a 40-year mortgage now.
Yep.
You go buy a house with 0 down with them. That house drops 10% and then the rates drop. How are you going to refinance?
Yeah, you can't.
The only way that they did it last time is they had to pass a bill after 2008 that made it so I think they could go up to like 135% on appraised value or 125%.
Yeah.
So I'm like, agents that don't explain that, like you could totally screw somebody over on that.
Yeah.
With bad advice. And
you see it all the time. You see it all the time. I see every, lenders talk about it, but agents are like, someone's like, oh, it's not worth it. Marry the rate or marry the house and date the rate. It's like, yeah, it's conception, it rhymes and it's, it's clingy, but I'm like, when you actually think about the fundamentals of it, you could put somebody in a very bad situation.
Right. I think as long as you're buying now with the intention that like, okay, I'm comfortable with wherever my payment stays at 7%. Let's just say it was 7%.
Yeah.
As long as you're comfortable and you know you can keep affording that, then sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you're buying a house with the intention that, oh, when the rate drops, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
That's just terrible.
And like,
advice.
I only want this payment for the next 12 months.
Yeah, I can handle this for a year,
Yeah.
and then I need to drop my payment. That's not good advice.
Might not be an option.
No.
And so, and that the hardest thing is being an agent is no matter how many stats we look at, no how many trends we look at, no matter what we think is going to happen,
right?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure. The top producer in your market does not know exactly what's going to happen. There's people on Wall Street that get paid millions of dollars a year, if not billions of dollars a year, and they don't know what's going to happen.
Jim Cramer.
Yeah, it's like
just short anything he says.
Yeah, it's like these guys, their sole job is to study the market and try to predict and make investments.
Right.
And they still can't get it right.
And that's why I feel like, I'm of the opinion because trend right now is year over year. We're down in pricing. For the last 3 months, we have been down in pricing year over year. And so it's like, I think the trend's going to continue for now. Like, obviously, I think peak pricing for our market was probably June right?
July
for
last
most
year.
people.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, keep watching the trend, but you also have to tell people, like your buyers, if they're like, hey, then I'm going to wait until the end of the year and see what prices come down to, then your advice still has to be like, hey, you need to be aware that at some point rates could pivot. And if they come down, you're going to have to buy because the inventory problem in our market, at least, was never solved. So like if rates drop, there's a chance prices come rising back pretty quickly. So like you have to look at both sides and say, I think this is where the market's going, but you still have to play devil's advocate and say it could still go this way.
Yeah.
Like nobody's right.
Yeah. The fundamentals that we're facing, and that's what makes it so hard, is like supply and demand. We have super low supply, and that's kind of been our saving grace in this whole market.
For sure.
It's like if we had normal levels of supply, things could have been a lot worse when rates started climbing.
Oh, for sure.
And
yeah, and like, well, with all the builders backing off, like everyone's backing off. Karchner that was building in our subdivision, they completely halted all the stuff they're doing. Yeah. And so it's like the inventory problem was just never solved. Rates just got so high that the inventory started to stack up.
Yeah.
And so like I worry more for our market in 4 to 5 years of what happens with pricing because it could totally take off again.
Yeah. And I think that's because no matter what, you can't snap your fingers and fix the inventory. Like that is a 5-10 year thing that's going to take time. And so it's like, what are going to happen to what will happen to prices if rates come down and more people can afford? Are we just going to kind of push and bake those up again?
Right.
Which
with our market, especially, like we've had a lot of luxury rental properties come in that are trying to charge anywhere from $1,600 to $2,200 for apartments.
Yeah.
And what are those people going to do the second housing prices drop?
Yeah.
Like the demand's going to come back for housing because I know that like Grant Cardone loves to say that people don't want houses anymore, but they do. Like the fact is that most people want to have a home.
Correct.
And so I feel like all those people, the second prices make sense, like that's just going to be another driving factor for prices to go up. Yeah. And a lot of people think single family might actually outperform multifamily over the next few years because of that.
Yeah. I think, two things on that. I'm like, we've already kind of seen a little bit of a pickup. I think people, even though rates haven't come down, inventory stayed low and people are they've been on the sidelines for long enough that they're like,
nothing's happening.
Nothing's really happening. Let's just go ahead and whatever we can afford, let's start looking at houses. So I think we've started to see that. I'm worried that, depending on what the Fed does this upcoming month with rates, if those come down, if they go below 6, I think you see a lot of demand back in the marketplace.
Yeah. I think the second that people feel like, okay, 4.5 to 5.5, 5.75. Like when rates were getting back down this last month, I think to 5.75.
Yeah.
People felt a lot more, I think, intrigued to go actually look and potentially put offers out knowing what payments were.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, again, like we can't guarantee the Fed because even though they raise their rate, that doesn't impact interest rates directly.
Correct. Yep.
Indirectly it can for sure. But it's like, even when they were raising their rates for mortgages were coming back down. And so it's like, if we settled by the end of this year, 4.5, 5.75 in between there, I think it just plateaus and slowly starts coming back up.
Yeah.
So
I think so too. I mean, we've already ran into, it's been kind of crazy. Like last few weeks, multiple offer situations again. Right. Which is weird. And like, I get a little bit of data because we've got, 15 people that are out submitting offers and doing things. And so I get at like who ran into multiple offers this weekend? What were the price points? what are we seeing? And that's what's intriguing because rates really haven't come down and we're starting to see that a little bit. Right. So I'm worried that like if rates really come down and we start to see the actual buyer demand come back in the marketplace,
right,
we're screwed with inventory levels. Yeah. Like,
well, and for me, like that's going to be my sign to get out of my house that like I'm breaking even on. Like that will eventually buy me something that'll most likely be multifamily. But I'm like, if that scenario happens, you're right. Like prices have to come back up. Like it just is what it is. Like anybody right now would go overspend on a house if they could get a 3% interest rate.
Oh, 100%.
Sucks. Like, to look at long term, but who wouldn't?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, looking at assumable loans and stuff like that's kind of interesting right now.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right scenario.
Yeah.
But
it's a little hard to make some of those work for sure.
Yeah. It's tricky. But my thing with multifamily is, I'm concerned about that market because I feel like there's been a lot of starts.
Right.
That are going to gear up to come onto the marketplace. Rates are high. Right. So like people that took out financing for those construction, like, are they going to be able to refinance the long-term financing on those?
Right.
What is that going to, and I think a lot of people started the class A multifamily. So are we going to get a big oversupply of that? Or rent's going to come down if it's just so hard?
I think they have to on those apartments. But I mean, for commercial, you're locked in for 5 years typically before your balloon and you have to refinance. And that's what everybody's terrified right now is that more with office space than anything else, right? Is that there's a lot of money have to come up to refinance. Yeah. But with the multifamily side, I'm like, how long, I think we had 800 units under construction. I don't know what the number is now.
Yeah.
But a lot of those have been rented, but then we've probably got 300 to 400 units coming up on 49th, I would imagine over there, somewhere in that range. And then the one behind KW stopped. So they're only finishing what they currently have. Really? So they're only maybe 90 units and they're pre-leasing now. So it's I think it depends on how much, but they always like to brag that we've got 100 people on our waiting list. Well, those same 100 people are on everybody's waiting list. Yeah. It's not 100 different people at each one of these apartments.
Yeah. When we developed the townhomes, we had a waiting list of 150, 200 people.
Right. How many of those were on Rockwell?
We only had 26. Yeah, exactly. We only had 27 units, and it still took us a little bit of time to sell them all. Most of the people that are on the waiting list aren't actually going to do anything.
Got me that corner unit.
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Those are hotcakes. We can get you another one across the street. But no, it's so interesting because I'm like, this is my profession. This is what I'm looking at all the time. And it's so hard because I've been sitting on cash for a while because the market isn't doing what I potentially thought it was going to be doing. And so now it's you just have to kind of pivot and transition with the market and decide what is my long-term goal.
Right. When do I do this?
Yeah. When do I just go ahead and move forward with something instead of being in this limbo? And I think that's what a lot of people are facing right now is I've been in limbo for 9 months. I just need to do something. So we're just going to go purchase or we're just going to do it.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of agents come just tell me, and I'm sure this was with any investor too, but oh, we're just going to buy it. And if you're putting 25% down on those, then sure, there's a pretty good chance you'd be able to refinance at a lower rate.
Yeah.
But they're buying things with negative cash flow and they're well, I get to own an asset and then I only have to make up a difference of $300 or $400 a month. And I'm that's great and all, but I'm that's still not amazing. When you refi, sure, maybe you end up coming cash positive, but I'm how good's the return on that?
Yeah.
Because I think there's been a lot of people over the last 2 years here too, that you can depreciate everything against your income. There's a lot of high income earners that have done that here.
Yeah.
But how many of them were actually buying good deals to that extent too? And I don't think it's a lot. Anybody that's bought in multifamily probably the last 2 years, I don't think they're in a great spot by any means. But if they need the write-offs for their income from their business, then it makes sense to do.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm kind of curious. I've seen we've ran into some issues where people have bought and they need to get out of it.
Right.
And their cash, there is no cash flow and they're negative equity.
Right.
And it's how do you get out? So you got to be able to hold those assets long-term. That's where, people are they play the equity game of hey, I'm just going to buy an asset and it's going to, I get a leverage that makes money and I get a
rents always go up.
Yeah.
There'll never be any problems.
I'm cash flow is king. You got to still have cash flow.
I think that's and it's got to be a good amount. It's just crazy how many, you look at the cap rates and then everything's still negative for your cash flow. And it's if you need and you have to have the write-off, then sure, or you're paying cash. I'm sure some of those were cash too, to that extent.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. You could refinance and pull cash out when things made sense and go buy something else.
Yeah.
But to justify okay, you can go put your money with Apple now and get 4% or American Express and get 3.75%. is it worth the extra risk to get a 6% cash on cash return and can even find a 6% cash on cash return?
Yeah. That's the hard part.
Because then it comes down to, okay, well, if I can get 4 and then I get all the write-offs, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where, again, there are some high income earners that did that, but the ones that aren't necessarily high income earners that were also,
that's what scares me.
Also doing that is kind of, because even if you're just breaking even, or let's say you're only losing, a couple $100 a month.
Right.
But then like a furnace goes out.
Yeah.
Or you have a big CapEx expense.
Right.
Like now you're dumping more money into that thing.
Out of pocket
cash.
Yeah.
And
which hurts. It hurts more than when it comes from the rental.
So like, I mean, I make incredible cash flow on my rental and I still get nervous. Like if an expenses come
Is that the one you have over by
8th Street? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, that's been a phenomenal property. Like,
right. Well, you got that one at a great time too, right?
Yeah. Good rate, locked in a good rate, long-term financing on it. We were actually just going to flip the property and then like,
right. I know you said that originally.
And we could have made a lot of money just flipping it. But I was like, long-term vision was my goal. I don't plan to sell any of the real estate I buy.
Right.
I think that's like going to be my thing. And hopefully that pays off over 10, 20 years. Right. But like, cause we could make a ton of money on our current house. We could make a ton of money in that house. But I'm like, I think
you're just going to go spend the same amount.
If you move
right
might
now,
as well just, I want to build up my cash flow.
Right.
And both those properties will cash flow amazingly well. So I look at some people that have, like I've got, let's say my one property, my 8th Street property cash flows better than a lot of people's like 10 properties.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, cool. And then my current house too would do the same thing.
Right.
So it's
and that's the nice thing though to look at is like, okay, like, yeah, there's a lot of people with a ton of units, but then you like look at how much cash flow it is per unit and you're like, okay, but I've got 2 and now I've got this much cash flow and it's not that far off of some of these. Like, it does show you that like, if you can find and buy the right deal over time, like you don't need 1,000 properties to make decent cash flow by any means. You just need to buy the right property.
For sure.
So not that those deals always come along, but like the same with my 4-plex is like, man, I basically stole that thing to an extent, but like the cash flow on it is just awesome. Like it's more than a lot of people would have buying that same property.
Yeah. 100%. And you got your 4-plex off market?
Off market. I was calling for like 6 months to try to find one. And so that would have been end of 2020, I think, when I started like seriously looking to buy something on that part.
Okay.
And so, I knew which ones I wanted to be in, but then you can't be like super picky either.
Yeah.
Like I really wanted a garage, but I'm like, found one that didn't have a garage. It's like, oh, am I going to not buy this because it doesn't have a garage?
And yours is in a great location. Like I like that.
I like it, especially with it having an HOA and things. I know some people hate that, but I actually really love that it's over there.
And what did you buy that deal for?
So I ended up in that one like 540.
Okay. And then that was in 2020.
Yep.
What rate did you get on it?
So that was in 2021.
Okay. 2021.
I closed on April 9th, 2021.
He's got the date.
I got the date, dude.
Yeah. Signed at 10:35 a.m. at Pioneer Town.
Still shaking from that day. Just kidding. No, so this was the crazy part. This is what I did with it because I bought it with my FHA loan originally, right? Because I house hacked it.
Yep.
And so put my 3.5% down. And what was my rate off the bat there? It was sub 3.25.
I was going to say, 2021.
I think it was 2.3 actually, now that I think about it.
Now you refinanced it?
This was the best part. So I bought that. I feel kind of bad because when I bought it at the time, like I sent this guy the comps from like one that had sold 1 to 2 months earlier.
Yeah.
And it was like 100,000 more for his. And he was like, hey, I'm happy with that number. But then 2 months after I bought it, a ton of them came up and started selling for like 720. And I was like, I feel bad, but what do you do, right?
Yeah.
Nowhere for sale. It's hard to price out multifamily.
Nobody knew what that was going to be.
Well, yeah, because the market finally started taking off.
And nobody knew what the demand was going to be multifamily. Like, multifamily was selling for what multifamily should not have sold for the last 2 years.
Yeah. For sure. And that was the crazy thing. So, like, by the time I could go and refinance, I was like, okay, I'm going to refinance because my PMI insurance, because it's based off purchase price.
Yeah.
It was stupid. It was like $400 or $500.
Oh, wow.
So I got that off there. And then we were living there, I think, rent free and making like $700 a month.
Incredible.
Should have just stayed there. But got to get those dogs a yard. That's the hard part.
So wait, when you refinance, what
2.9.
2.9. So you have that 4-plex at a 2.9 rate? Mm-hmm. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll likely
And
never
I thought about
do that
selling
again.
it. And I'm the same as you as I'm like, okay, that's great that you could go get this money, but then you're going to go put 25% down on those 4-plexes for 740 and be in the exact same position.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Because it's like at what you want to do something with your cash. It's like cash in the bank does nothing.
Right.
Except for lose value. So it's like I kept running into that because I was like, oh man, I I could cash out these things and I'd have so much money. It's like, but then for what? Then I got to find a place to put this money.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have anywhere better to put
Stressful
it.
part.
Yeah. It's like, I don't have anywhere better to put it right now. And I kind of think you need to like keep, like if I have too much cash in the bank, like I get comfortable.
Yeah.
And so like,
you start sleeping in a little more in the mornings those days.
Jacob can't get me to the gym at 5 anymore.
Dude, I'm so religious about, I have an American Express high savings account.
Yeah.
All of my money goes basically into there.
Smart.
And I just don't look at it because then I look at my main check and I'm like, I have no money. I just ignore that. I'm like, I have no money.
I got to go do 4 open houses
Better
this
go
week.
work. Yeah.
That's where I'm at. And I need to, we need to do what we've been talking about so I can get rid of some and put my back up against the wall again.
That out. We'll get one.
But no, I think that's, investing in real estate is it's such a good vehicle to build long-term wealth.
Right.
And what I like is like, you're doing it at a young age. You took we're both doing it at a young age. I think like I wish I would have done the house hacking thing because I think that's like incredible.
Yeah. I think would you ever had your daughter by that point though?
No,
I'm trying to remember.
We just had her 7.5 months ago.
Okay.
So no, it was, and Bree probably would have been okay with it, but I thought there's no way I could have convinced my wife to move into a fourplex. And we started out like our first house we bought was a Rockwell and 3-car garage. Like it was going to that and then trying to take a step back or something.
It would have been difficult.
Would have been really difficult. And I didn't have that long-term vision of like investing in real estate early on. So we've kind of developed that. And now I'm like, I got so many people that there's so much pent up demand that as soon as I think it's a good time to buy rentals, like I want to do it at scale.
Yeah.
And so I'm keeping my eye on that thing. Cause that's where I really enjoy being in real estate. I enjoy like looking at the numbers and finding those deals. Eventually, like that's a long-term play. If I have a team, I want to spend a lot of my time in the investment side of things, and looking for deals and doing that thing. I love helping first-time home buyers and doing that stuff
for sure.
But I also really like helping. I like helping other people understand the game of real estate,
right?
Because I think it is a game. How do you leverage other people's money or the bank's money to buy these assets and make them make sense?
Yeah, and the other thing with that though, too, long-term, like, not that this won't work out for you by any means, but in the end, like when these big teams go to like when the main agent retires, like, how much does that team end up being worth? It's really not much in the end. You're just worth your database. And it's hard because it's like you and I probably have the same people in our databases to an extent, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like in the end, if you're an agent, your database, like you have to think that this isn't going to be worth that much when I retire because those people wanted to work with you.
Yep.
And so it's like if you're not buying assets along the way, you're almost like it's like being in the NFL. All of a sudden, you do your real estate career, let's just say for 30 years. And if you have nothing at the end, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like you don't have anything to really sell.
Yeah. There's no pension.
No, like these databases just don't sell for that much in the end.
No. And you make a really good point and that's what you got to look like if you are looking to build a team or go that route. What is your exit or what is your long-term strategy? Because you can do it at a high level for X amount of years, but again, that, unless you just save all your money and you live really frugally, what is going to be your exit strategy?
Right.
So I put a lot of thought, it's definitely on
here's the one thing I'm going to give you some credit for. At least your name's not in your business. That'll make it a little easier. But like these agents that put their names in their companies and then they think they're going to go sell them, like, why would I want to have your name on my business? Like the second I buy your database, like your name's gone. Like I'm done with it.
Even if you don't try to sell it, like I can get a sales manager in place and we can run with our systems here.
Right.
I don't have to be the one selling.
Yeah.
To run
it's
it.
not Anthony top notch, right?
Yeah.
It's top notch. It's a company.
Yeah. So people can step into the roles and actually run it. That's what I always confused me because when I got into real estate, everybody did that. And I'm like, why? Like, how am I supposed to leave that? Because people are working with that company because of, if your sales manager now, is working with people and they're like, well, where's, the X person, where's Anthony? I thought this was Anthony's team. It's like, oh, I can kind of become a shadow in the back slowly.
You can step out a little bit more. You still have to check in. It's the same with rentals.
Yeah.
Like I love my property manager, but I still check the rents and make sure that where we're going is in a positive direction.
Who is your property manager?
Blue Pine.
Okay.
Do a great job. Highly recommended.
Is it Justin?
The Luthies. Yep.
Okay.
Tyson. Sorry, not Justin.
Okay, cool. And you've got your fourplex right now.
Fourplex and just the house,
and
family house rent.
How does your house rent?
It actually rented super quick. North side of town. It's that Karchner build. It's a 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we put it up and had it rented within a week.
Okay.
So I think we got like $2,200 a month on that one. So
Okay.
again, that one's just a break even, but the tax write-off this year, like I understand why there's a lot of people that buy stuff just to have the tax write-off.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's
but then
huge.
that's the tricky part of balancing that and buying stuff next year is like, how much do you claim? And
Yeah, that's always and that's why I try to, because my goal with my agents is, I want to teach them to sell real estate at a high level, but I also want to teach them like how to build wealth and, like invest in real estate.
Yeah.
So I always tell them, you're a new agent, think about what you want to do next year. Is it in the cards to buy a rental property? For a lot of new agents, it's probably not. So it's like, deduct everything you can, save the money on taxes. But when you're 2-3 years into it, let's look at, hey, is buying a rental property in the cards? Is that what we want to do in the next year?
Right.
And we got to make smart decisions and game plan tax season prior too, to make sure that you can make that happen.
Do it. Yeah.
So, and a lot of people, they don't think about that stuff.
No, but I think one thing for you that I will say, and like Morgan Peterson's team does this too, like, it sucks because like the team I came from, there's a lot of smart individuals, but they never cared to share this information, which I think would help them retain a lot of people is the fact that they'd have that knowledge backing them.
Yeah.
Because they're worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
But like, there's just people that don't care to share that stuff when that's such a strong selling point for joining a team.
Yeah.
So like, especially with Morgan, because Morgan's a lot
He's doing
bigger
it at
than
a high-
people understand to that extent too.
Yeah.
And he's just such a humble guy about it that like, if I had to join a team, nothing towards you.
Yeah.
That's like, that would be one place I would always consider because he's just so down to earth and understands that stuff so well.
He's doing it at a high level and he's had a lot of experience in that.
Right.
Which it's like, if you can, I look at it as it's not fun for me just to get there. Like I want to get there with people. And I find a lot of fulfillment in helping, my thing is like, if I can always leave an agent better than I found them.
Right.
So agents will come into the team, we'll have turnover inevitably. But if I can say that when that agent came in and when they left, like if we left them better than we found them, like that brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And fulfillment.
That's the hard, like, I love that type of stuff too. And then, like, it would just be a matter, like, I would love to have agents that join that are there for 10 years, but that just isn't a realistic expectation to that extent too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's teams that have like 1 to 2 years turnover. That is just crazy to me. So, like,
For sure.
trying to find that balance on there is pretty important too. But the other thing I will say with that though, too, is like for agents starting, like, I feel like at a certain point, like, mindset wise, you either realize that teams aren't for me. Like I'm too independent because I'm always going to be looking at the negatives of this.
Yeah.
I want to go produce. Like there's just a certain point where it's like, okay, I'm either an agent that belongs with the team because like my mindset's not there, and not that everybody wants to go and try to make $1 million a year because that's not the most important thing by any means.
For sure.
But like I feel like that's where teams can be attractive, and not that you can't be a high producer on a team, but like everybody's got different life goals. Like if you join 10 teams and you're like, man, these just aren't for me. Either you're the problem or teams just aren't for you. Like at a certain point, like some people just don't like to be led that way.
Yeah. So I think teams are a good fit for because being an entrepreneur, you have to be disciplined. If you're solo, like nobody's telling you what to do.
No, my boss is an asshole when you're solo, dude. That guy sucks. Wakes me up at 4 a.m.
Well, you're disciplined. And so like you're at the gym early, you're committed to doing your open houses, you make your phone calls.
Right.
When a lot of agents, they can't be the only person responsible for that because they won't do it.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, a lot of times it's hard to even get agents to do it on a team.
Right.
So it's like if you were off on your own trying to do this, you'd be screwed.
Right.
So I think you're a unique person in that aspect too, where you're actually disciplined.
And I feel like that's a telling sign, like, because after I left that team, like there was a lot of teams that came to me and like, do you want to join? And I'm like, what is your value proposition of me? Like, I'm always going to be complaining about these couple of factors because I know I can go do it myself.
Yeah.
So like, and that's the hard part, I think. And that's where it's like, I do think about starting a team one day. It's just like, where does the value come from? Yeah. And it's like, do I become a high producer and then come back to that and say like, this is where my value is? Not that I don't think I'm valuable now, but it's like, I just don't think I want to deal around with that stuff right now versus just like having admin. Like I've got VAs right now through Brivity, and that's all that I really care to have to an extent for now.
For sure. Yeah, I think, I like that you're doing that because a lot of people, we get asked that, new agents think about that, like, when is the right time for me to start a team? And it's like, well, you need to think about like, why would somebody join your team? Yeah. What value do you have to add to a new agent? It's like you either got to be producing at a high level or you got to have an inflow of leads that you can provide to somebody, to give them business. Right. And so, because if you're not, I see a lot of teams that start that really don't have a value proposition. They're just like, trying to recruit people and let's work together. And then it's like, it never ends well. You got to think, if you are going to go that route, what is your business plan?
Right.
What are you going to do?
And the funny thing about that, like for the team that I first joined before the merger and all their stuff, but like I love the top agent on there, but it was so funny going to him and being like, hey, I'm just starting, like, what do I do? Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
and he has just been in the business so long that he just didn't know, like, in markets change right after 40 years. Like, it's going to be different on how you start.
Yeah.
We're not calling out yellow pages anymore.
Yeah.
But that's
wear
kind
your
of
name tag everywhere.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Hand out business cards yeah. And not that those things like that can work to an extent. Right. Sure. But it is a matter of finding whoever's going to be the most valuable to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And I think that's what agents have to look at is, one is like, who is where you want to be, and like who can provide value, and then like, what is that person's vision? Right. Because I also don't think like running a team where you admire the person that started the team, but that person is not in the business. It's like, well, then the reason you're joining is to get closer to somebody that's not there. So it's like, maybe you need to rethink about like the reasoning and joining, right? So it's like, make sure that when you're talking to teams, what are you looking for out of the team, and be honest about that. Like I asked my agents, like, what are you guys looking for? A lot of them look for like, they want direct mentorship and stuff from me. So right now I'm in the business a lot because I'm like, I got to give them what they want out of the team.
More coaching.
Yeah. And so be transparent with that when you are joining a team or you're talking to a team is, what do you want out of that team?
Right.
Because the team's going to tell you what they can provide, but is it what you want?
And still, like, to an extent, like, and I was bad about this, I will say, but like, you still have to almost like get over your pride. Like, it isn't about you. Like, when you join a team, like, sorry, it is about that team. Like, in the end,
it's a business. Like,
if it doesn't work for you, then leave. Like, that is what it comes down to. And like, I did run into that issue to an extent, and I'm glad that was eventually pushed on me to get me out of that team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, if you're just complaining, like, then obviously it just may not be for you, but you can't blame everything on the team. Yeah. Like, you know what you signed up to join.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I'm glad that you had that realization.
Yeah. No, I'm not that prideful. A little prideful, but not that. Like, you just have to be able to see.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's been the biggest lessons you've learned? And what do you think kind of like, well, first off, before we get into that, what has separated you as an agent?
Personality, I think.
Okay.
Like, honestly, like, again, when I say like the open houses have been so huge with me, is like, I just am really good in person. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging or anything, but I just know that's where I strive.
That ego's coming out.
And like, I think all the time like that I've put into learning, like, I think has just helped me get to that point where like, I'm just so confident in my ability. I believe in myself. And it's so funny to look at versus when I started, because when I started selling real estate, I didn't own any real estate, lived in my mom's basement. Yeah. Like, it is what it is. But it's just so funny how like more confident I got as things went on. And like, I just stopped caring what other people think. Like, that's obviously the biggest thing off the bat too. Cause like, you're going to meet a lot of rude people in this business, and that's fine. Like, you don't have to work with those people, and that's great. Like, you find your target audience.
Yep.
So,
no, I think you're right. And I think your approach to being, Tom Ferry talks about the knowledge broker. Right. Like, you get into the numbers, you understand what's going on in the market.
Well, and again, that's not to say that you don't have a good understanding of that either.
Yeah.
But like, and this is the thing I like, I've had a lot of agents come to me that are like, hey man, how do I do open houses? And like, me helping them doesn't hurt me, because like, if 4 groups come through my open house and those exact same 4 groups come through his open house, those people are going to like each of us for different reasons. Absolutely. To that extent. And like, you're not made for everybody. You're not going to pick up every single person that you meet by any means. And so I think accepting that, like, I think there's a lot of things I'm great with in person that I beat people on, but there's a lot of things that you'd beat me on in person too. Like, that's the unique thing about us. Right.
And there's enough business to go around.
Right.
Having that like abundance mindset. Is so important in this business, because I feel like a lot of agents have that scarcity mindset. It's like,
you're fighting over when you lose a deal though still.
But beyond that point, we're still competitive, so we still want to win that. But ultimately, like, there is enough business to go around. I love that you're willing to share that, you know, and help other agents. And you've put, what I want people to understand, especially if you're a new agent or you're an agent wanting to get into the business, like, you read books, you increase your knowledge base.
We're not talking Harry Potter either.
Yeah, like, we're talking like, you go out and you put forth the effort, because I see that in so many agents just want to like, what should I do? Right. Well, one thing you should do on your downtime is you should learn more about the market. Right. And I can't just like tell you, I can't send you every article that you should read. No. You need to have enough self-discipline to say like, I'm going to go out and look for the articles that I want to read. Right. I want to read them and then figure out your own what you believe in.
Yeah.
Because you probably believe different things that I believe about the market, and not that either one of us are wrong, but
Right.
the only way that you're going to be able to communicate that to a client is if you believe what you're saying.
Yeah. Like, I feel like at a certain point, like there's YouTubers I watch every day that like, okay, I get this amount of knowledge from this guy. I get my market knowledge or stock market knowledge and what's happening in the general market altogether from this guy.
Yeah.
But like, I don't go repeat everything he says, right? Internalize it and then make it your own to that extent too, which there's nothing wrong with copying those people.
Yeah.
But you need to understand the concept. You can't just go out and say, yeah, Anthony, interest rates are going to drop because of this factor. Like, oh, what makes you think that? Like, you need to be able to respond to those questions.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is like, I don't just go spew numbers and then like hope this person doesn't question me. Like, I'm fine with questions.
Yeah. You're like, average days is 50 days now. Oh, what does that mean? I don't know. It's increased.
50 days from today is wait.
Exactly.
Wait.
You got to be able to formulate your own thoughts
Right.
on whatever subject it is.
And still have your opinion.
Correct.
But then you still have to admit that your opinion could be wrong. Like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, this is where the numbers and the trends are going.
Yeah.
This is why I think it's going to continue this way. We've had 3 months of this. Like, a trend usually is 3 months in a row for our business to an extent.
Yeah.
It shows that we're in a downtrend, right?
Yeah.
And so same with like CPI data coming out. Like, if we see 3 reports of CPI coming down, we're saying we're in a downtrend on that side. But like, how can you explain all that stuff? Like, do you know what CPI is? Do you know what PPI is?
Yep.
That's the funnest one to say to everybody is what's PP? That's the best one to talk to people about.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like understanding all that stuff and like not that you have to know every single thing about it, but you have to know why that impacts interest rates, for example, right?
For sure. I think, and that's, I've been really impressed. And you've kind of had that even before you got into real estate. Like, you wanted to know about money and finances and real estate. So I tell, like, if you're looking to get into real estate, like, you really got to be curious about the industry. Yeah. Because you got to want to learn more. Because if you don't really care about it, you're not going to succeed.
Right. Well, like, and that's like agents that work with investors. Like, I feel like there's probably a lot of agents that have worked with investors that don't own any rentals themselves. And it's like, and that's great. Like, maybe it was just a family friend that wanted to buy a rental. But like, how, if your idea is, okay, I want to work with investors only, what value are you going to provide to them? And like, do you understand, like, when it comes to caps and things like that, like, are you going to understand talking numbers with them?
For sure.
Because if you don't, like, especially with them, because investors are jerks to an extent, like, they're just going to not talk to you. Like, they're not going to want to talk to you because they're going to think you're an idiot if you can't understand that stuff.
Like, what have you done and where's your knowledge coming from? Like, if you have no history, I look at agents that want to get into commercial space too. And it's like, but they don't know anything about commercial. Right. They don't know, like, and if you're not willing to study that market and like become an expert in it, then it's not going to pay off. It's not going to work.
Like, and that's to say, like, even with like, well, I own one multifamily property. That's not to say I know everything, but like, I understand enough about it from buying one and understanding what it goes into operating it and working it, because we manage it ourselves for a while too. Like, I think that stuff's important too. Absolutely. But it's like, you have to understand every single little thing to become the knowledge broker to that extent. To
be an expert. I love that. And that's so valuable for those that are looking out there, because I think that's so important to realize. If you really don't have an interest in real estate, you're probably not going to do it at a high level. You might sell a few houses here and there, but
for sure. Like, but how passionate, like, you're probably never going to be a top producer. Like,
correct.
How many agents got in during COVID that were just like, oh, this is easy money? Because everybody always thinks it's easy money. Like, this business is work. Like, I know everybody hates it. Realtors. I get it. It's fine. Okay. But it is work in the end. And I mean, you understand too, like, it just takes a lot of effort, a lot of no's to get a yes. Like, it is what it is. It
takes a lot out of you. And I think when you're in the business, we've had her admin before to like, you guys don't make enough money for what for all the stuff that you have to deal with. Cause it's like, we do deal with so much. And a lot of people think like, oh, you sell one house, you get this. It's like, yeah, but you know how many like free hours went into doing everything else on the sidelines of that? Like, you just see the one house and the one check, but Jacob also worked, you might have done 20 open houses and worked for the last 3 months to get that one deal. Right. So it's like, you spread that over time and it's really not that much. You know?
Well, and then the justification too is like, okay, why am I paying you guys 6%? Right.
Yeah.
Well, like, what knowledge do you have that is making it worth that money? Like, obviously people come to us for experience, but they also come to you for market knowledge and a lot of other things too, especially for sellers right now 100%. That are having a hard time adjusting to reality.
Where the market is. Yeah.
So it's like, how the value that you charge, like you have to have a reason that people want to use you. You can't just be a licensed real estate agent and hope that's
I'm worth
all
that
it's gonna
because I have
take.
my license. No, that's not,
And
that's
I
not
went
how
and
it
did
works.
this class that's really easy to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Work with me. Like, how much extra knowledge do you have that makes it worth it to that extent?
Correct. And that's why I'm kind of excited about the market that we're in, because you have to differentiate yourself from the competition.
Oh,
and like,
for sure.
Beforehand, it didn't really matter because the market was so crazy. You could put a sign.
You can help me write an offer?
Yeah,
Perfect. Come with me.
And do you know how many it was sad. Do you know how many like new agents, like terrible offers I got where like nothing was even filled out.
Oh,
aside from like purchase price.
Just had one of those recently.
And I would literally send it back and just be like, here's my list of everything that needs to change. I would prefer if you just wrote another offer so that we didn't have to like put this in a counter or an addendum.
Obviously, we're not mentioning names here.
Yeah.
Has somebody send me a contract that was a 2019 contract. And I'm like, how did you even get access to this?
Where
Like,
did you
I don't
find
even
this?
know where to find that thing, but I'm like, I would just send it back. I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry, but can you go refill all this out? Like, don't want to sound like a jerk, but like, come on.
In every time, like in a super nice way, but also what I think is I just feel bad for the client that didn't know that their agent didn't know how to fill out a contract. And like, they're not getting represented well, because in a competitive market, that could be you're going up against another offer, but yours comes in like that. It's like, cool, I'm not even looking at that. I'm going to go for this. So the client is at a disadvantage if their agent isn't as capable or as professional or hasn't had the time in the market like they think.
Right. Sometimes I just wonder, I'm like, man, like if you did all this, like how comfortable is your client with you? Like, unless it's family, then sure, your family's going to let you mess up a few things for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm like, sometimes that's what scares me is like, man, if you messed all this up, like what experience is your client getting? Like, are you making sure? Because there's other things to check in inspections that a lot of agents don't check too. And it's like, do you know what you should be looking for to an extent?
Yeah.
So
they either don't care or they haven't had the training.
Right.
And that's like our biggest thing with our team is like, we want to make sure our team, because ultimately our team is our reputation of us.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that if like somebody on the team is sending an offer, like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because that was like my biggest nightmare is getting a call from like Jacob and he's like, hey dude, one of your agents just sent me an offer and it like who was it? What did they, I want to make sure that our reputation stays good. So
yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like understanding like this isn't as important now as it was probably during COVID more than anything else, but like understanding what you can use in a contract to be more competitive too, like, and understanding the contracts. Like as a new agent, like you need to print those off and read through them and understand them.
100%.
Like you should be able to answer every line.
Yeah.
Like in our buyer reps, the line I hate the most is the commission one that says that like, oh, if the seller doesn't pay, the buyer's responsible.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, but we're looking at listings that are listed. Like, I wish they would rephrase that in a different way, because I've had so many buyers be like,
ask about that.
Wait, I have to pay this? And it's like, no, because everything we're looking at has already agreed to pay commission. So you're clear on that part.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, if they could change that wording.
Yeah. And I always throw it like, hey, and if you don't mark that second box, what it's like, if it's not listed.
Yep.
And you just say, if we do find a property that's not on the market, like it's my responsibility to negotiate my own commission.
To get a compensation agreement. Yeah.
So it's like, if you just, but yeah, I agree. It's like, if
they
you don't know
change that first one.
if you don't know that wording's in there, but a lot of agents don't even know that's in there.
Right.
And a lot of agents don't know, like I've had an agent, like even recently, people try to terminate through an RE10 as a seller. I'm like, there's no,
I know. Right.
and like, they're like, no, we've done it before. And I'm like, I don't care if you've done it before. Like it's
only the buyer.
There's no right you have to do that. And it's like, I'm sorry that whatever agent previously you worked with allowed you to do that, because you shouldn't have been able to do that. Like,
imagine if they could though, that'd be terrible.
I know. It's like a lot of these things. And then you get I've been doing this for 30 years.
Oh my, those are my favorites.
And I'm just like, blows my mind. So I, no offense to any of those agents, but it's like, we can do better as an industry. Like, cause I think that's why we have a bad rep, is cause some of those clients do see some of that stuff. And it's like, we're not all like that. Some of us actually know what we're doing.
Right.
And we want to make the industry better, and we want to represent you to the best of our abilities. We're not just in this to try to get a commission check.
But at least that shows, like, even with more experienced agents, because I think we've all had that happen where it's like, no, this is the right way. And eventually they come through and they're like, okay, nope, I got that wrong. But it's like, stop being so prideful. You don't know everything. Like all of us, like, and if you and I just stayed where we're at right now, in 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, like we're going to be so misdated with information that like, it is a disservice to your client. Like you always need to be expanding. We could be in this business for 20 years. And if we stop learning, like
become irrelevant.
How do we justify our fee?
Yeah.
Right.
100%. I agree. Unfortunately, there's a lot of agents out there that shouldn't charge the current fees. But there's a lot of agents out there that are absolutely worth the commission.
Yeah, worth every
So
dollar.
it's like you gotta weed through those. And that's, as a consumer, asking the right questions and making sure that your agent is who you think they are and
Right.
has the track record that you're looking for. But to wrap this all up, we could talk, me and Jake could talk for hours.
We talk on
It's
the
like-
treadmill all the time.
Yeah. Oh, literally when I went to the gym the other day, when we talked for an hour, like I wasn't even planning to walk on the treadmill, but I started and I'm like, I got to go now. I didn't even get a workout at it, but I walked and we had a great conversation. Well, you were there 2 hours before me, so you got your full workout in, that's what I get for being late.
Day, right?
Yeah. So wrapping it all up, what's been your biggest takeaways from starting in real estate? What are maybe a lesson or two that you've learned that you want to share with the audience, whether it's getting, selling real estate or even investing in real estate? Because this podcast is for people that are in the pursuit of wealth and trying to build financial freedom. And so what's some lessons that you've learned?
So on the investing side, and I feel like this was the most important part to me, because I had already been looking at rentals 2 years prior. Again, I wish I could go back and have bought them for sure.
Yeah.
But I was saying, I've watched so many real estate investing courses, and I just got to the point where I was like, I think we are always like, oh, I'm almost there. I almost have everything learned. I just need to watch one more. And then I finally read, it was Gary Keller's investing book.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if it's just called The Real Estate Investor.
Okay.
I think it's The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, because he has that in everything.
Yeah.
Obviously. Such a good book, because at a certain point I was just reading something and one of the guys had said, in the end, you just need to pick the rate that you're comfortable with, that is your return. And you have to go for that. Cause I think we all get so stuck in no, this has to be a 10%, or this has to be a 12%, or no, 8%. No, this won't work. I think we get so into that little nitpicky stuff where it's you just need to commit.
Yeah.
And obviously it can depend on the market. If you can get 4% here and only 5% here, which one's safer to an extent, right?
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you have to jump and just get into it.
Yep.
And then it gets a lot easier to sign those papers at closing. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah,
I've done this before.
What's a little more debt here and there? But that'd be the biggest thing, because I did get in this to start buying rentals, and I should have had a lot more from when I first started.
Yeah.
That I just got so tied up with just trying to make sure I knew every single thing, which again is not a terrible thing, but you just can't overanalyze. You have to dive in at some point.
Yeah.
So that was a really good book to just say, dude, you have to decide on your rate and then buy that rate. It is what it is. And that works in any market, right?
Yeah. You can so analysis paralysis, I think is kind of that thing. Sure. But an analogy that I just thought of, it's you can't, if you're going to the grocery store looking for everything, you're going to spend a lot of time in that grocery store.
Oh, for sure. Costco, all the time.
Yeah, you could spend a long time there. But if you go in with a list of what you're looking for and you're in and out, it's that's what you need to figure out. So what is your sandbox or your list of things that you're looking for? And if the property fits that, then look to pull the trigger. Right. But if it doesn't, then don't. So stay true to that, whatever it is that you're looking for. Right. And not saying that you can't be creative and I can tweak things here. That's fine. But I think if you're first starting, you should have your parameters and just look for that.
Oh, 1,000%.
Because that's going to give you the confidence to pull the trigger. I see so many people that just overanalyze everything. Right. And then never do anything. And it's
same with making your calls. How many times do you just sit there oh man, if I call this person, they're going to yell at me. Or all 20 of these people know I'm calling them and they're all going to laugh at me later. You just need to start calling. It's going to be fine. Yeah. But just get started at some point. You can't sit there all day. You can only find out so much information. Yep. I'm always happy we're not in business sales and we're okay, well, I need to get on his LinkedIn profile and figure this out before I call. Thankfully we're not that far in to overanalyze these things.
Some agents do though. They're I'm going to forewarn this number, look up, see where he works, see what he does. And then I'm going to
find his car. I'm going to go leave my business card on here first.
Dude, just call and ask questions. Get going. And I think that's a key to a lot of people that I've talked to that are at a high level of success is you just got to eventually you just got to jump in and do it.
Well, and the same with starting as an agent too. You're going to have to put in the time, to become a master, right? You got to put in your 10,000 hours. So if you know that open houses are going to be your thing, you're probably going to do a ton and you're going to suck at them. Yeah. And that's fine. But you have to get started to get to the experience. Yeah. You have to go through all the trials to get to here. Yeah. Right. In the end. So even everything I've done, right. Over time, it finally got me to this point where I'm okay, I feel like I'm here. But now I'm okay, this is the next place I want to get to. And there's going to be more trials to get to that spot.
Yeah. There's no shortcuts.
No.
So it's time, you think time under tension, it's time in the market. Right. It's time in the business. You think Steph Curry just threw up his first three and was oh, this is swoosh, and I just keep throwing them up. It's like, no, there's a ton of practice.
That didn't work for me. So I knew right away I wasn't going to be a basketball player. So
like it's practice in anything, and you can get good at anything if you want to, and you put enough time into it.
Well, and it's funny for me. So Anthony and I are both getting ready to run a half marathon, and it's the same way with that, man.
Well, Jacob's getting ready. I'm just going to attempt to run it.
Anthony and I are going to finish together. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're going to hold hands all the way through. But like, even with that, like, it's kind of rejogged something in my mind with that too, is like, I never run.
Yeah.
Done the stair step or whatever.
Yep.
But like, did the 1 mile, came back and did 3, came back and did 6. Like, it's so funny that like, once you get started, like that progress just builds up fast.
Yeah.
So it's like, just stop with the excuses and get started so you can get there quicker. That's the only way. Is to just fail through it until you get to that point.
Push the snowball down and it'll gain momentum.
Yeah, 1,000%.
If it just sits at the top, and you're never going to do anything.
There's one last thing I did want to bring up too.
Yeah.
Sorry, this one is the most important thing that I just wish I could go back. I'm going to write a book on this one day too.
Okay.
I like Grant Cardone for some of his things. I like Dave Ramsey for some of his things.
Okay.
Like, maybe it'll be called Dave Cardone one time, because they teach
really
a lot of valid things on each side.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I wish I would have taken away, and like, this just was never in my family, like we were talking earlier.
Yeah.
I think my parents started getting divorced when I was 9. It took them like 3 or 4 years to actually get things finalized. And there's just a lot of moving in between those times.
Sure.
My parents didn't have a lot of time to like help me with a lot of stuff, like raising us. They were in their own battles. I don't blame them. It is what it is. But looking back now, the number one thing that I look back that skill wise I wish I had, budgeting. And I think it's so funny because it sounds so easy, but how many people are actually dedicated to a budget?
Oh,
I'm not saying go cut up your credit cards or anything by any means, but follow an accurate budget. Because I look at how much money I started making when I first started, and I'm like, like, I don't know, how much did you do your first year?
First full year, 167,000.
Don't tell me that. Oh, those team fees hurt a little bit. But no, like, how much of that do you think you actually like saved? Were you pretty good at budgeting at that time? Or you're like, oh my gosh, I'm making it?
Yeah, no, terrible at budgeting.
And if you would have budgeted at that time, how much more real estate could you have bought early on? Tons. A lot more, right?
I look back at the amount of money I've made over my career, and it's sickening. I panic. Like, where did it?
I know
go?
where my first year of commissions are all invested in John Wick guns that are sitting in my safe right now for a fact. And so, like, that's the other thing too, is like, I know that we're always like, oh, we have to improve our income. We have to improve our income.
Yeah.
But then we just we go spend it all. Like, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yep.
So like, if you really are interested in building the wealth, like, I know that there's so many people, like Bradley likes to say, like, oh, well, if your wife's out spending your budget, then you're not making enough money. That's cool, but you can outspend $1 million even if you're making $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine. Like, so figuring out that budget and staying committed to it, you can get into the market so much quicker if you actually do that type of stuff. And that's what I wish if I could go back, because we would have had so much more money and would have been able to buy so much more things at that time.
Well, because you look, I love that you said that. And I look back to, like, prior to me being in real estate, like, I was working at the bank.
Right.
And we made it living.
Right.
I don't know how, but we did. So like, if I would have kept those principles and lived that same lifestyle and just increased my income, I would probably be like 5x where I'm at right now. Like, because I could have bought real estate at an earlier time that has gained massive appreciation over the last 3, 4, 5 years. So I look back and I think that's a great piece of advice. Like, if you can commit to a budget early on in your life and in your career,
1,000%.
And as your income increases, your expenses and your liabilities don't.
Right.
So with our agents, we actually we implemented we have a wealth tracker template so they can track their net worth.
For sure.
And it's like a spreadsheet that they can plug all their stuff into. It doesn't have to be shared with me, but like we gave them that tool because I want them to see, because in real estate, it's like, if you go and make $10,000 in a month or $15,000 in a month, your net worth should be increasing. If not, where's that money going?
Theoretically, right.
Yeah. And I think just having a personal balance sheet is so important for agents.
Right.
Because that'll, even if you don't have a budget, but you have a balance sheet, that can force you to go into a budget, because now you're like, oh man, you're right. I've made like $20,000 this year, and like my net worth's decreased. Where's that money going?
Yeah. And did that money go to, like, did I buy anything that was still an asset? Like, as much as I'm going to hate on buying my guns, but like, all those have held their value to an extent too. I could go sell them and get all that money back today.
For sure.
But like, you have to keep budgeting. Like, if you're buying a car, that's not going to make you any money. Like, I know we always want the next nice thing. I'm very guilty of this. I think we all are. And now I'm just like such the mindset that, like, dude, I'd rather have my car paid off, drive the thing into the ground, and use that money to go buy something else instead of like, and that's the thing is like, I could have gone, same with you. Like we could have gone and bought $100,000 cars within the first 2 years of our business. We didn't. Like, it's not the smart thing to do. Like you should be saving your money. Cause like, yeah, you can buy that truck, but what's the cost value of that money over time?
Yeah. First 3 years I leased a Tacoma my payment was $250 a month.
Okay, that's not bad. That's a good deal right there.
It was awesome. And
that's a great deal right there.
I sold it after my lease for more than I had, so I made a little bit of money on the lease. And I did research on that. I was like, okay, I had no money getting into real estate.
Right.
I couldn't really afford a car. I'm surprised I even I got a loan for a car.
Dude, Teton.
Yeah, it was perfect. And I looked at it and I was like, well, what car could I like buy that would not lose value? And everything I read was like Tacomas hold their value, especially even if you lease them.
Oh, for sure.
And so like I was like, all right, I'm gonna go lease a Tacoma. My payment was super cheap. I was like, even at year 1, year 2, year 3, when I was making good money, I kept my truck.
Right.
Like that's what I drove.
Right.
And so you've got to, if you can do that, and I wish I would have done that in more aspects of my life, like not increase my expenses as fast as I did. I would have been,
because I know everybody likes to say that like, oh no, like I'm not going to go do that. You're going to go do that stuff.
100%.
Like it 1,000% will happen no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you can put a strict budget in and follow it, like you can get your dream car one day, but like go get the real estate first. That's going to pay for it for you.
Correct.
Because if you go buy a brand new Mercedes, drive that thing off the lot, it's going to drop 30, 40 grand the first year. Well, depending on how much you buy. The car I want to buy would have. And so it's like, you're going to lose all that value and then you have nothing after that.
Correct.
Versus if it's your cash flow paying for it, guess what? You bought the piece of real estate, you're going to have the real estate in the end.
Yeah. So, it's the good principle to look at is, okay, what is the payment on, what is your truck? It's like, hey, my truck's going to cost $600 a month, $700 a month. It's okay. You need to go, instead of spending X amount of money on that truck, go put that money into an asset that's going to generate $600-700 a month, and then use that cash flow to pay for the payment on the liability.
And that's where I'm mad at myself for that too, because like I bought the fourplex, I was living there rent free, making $700, bought the house, and now like that covered a lot of the payment, right? Like I think I only had to make up like a $300 difference on that house, but it's like, would it have been smarter to go on to the next fourplex? And the answer is yes. I just wasn't dedicated to with the position we were in, just kind of like you were saying, how hard it would be to go back.
For sure.
But if I could have, like, I definitely would have done that now in hindsight, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you can focus on like, okay, my Tesla I want to get's $1,200 payment. What can you buy that makes you that money? And until you can get that money and just cash flow, you shouldn't buy it. Like it is just going to hold you up long term. Like you can't say that buying the Tesla made you any more money.
No. Not
Except
at all.
we still love Elon though.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's the only thing.
Great vehicle.
Did I just buy the Starship blowtorch that he just released? Yeah.
Of course you did.
Yeah. It's an investment, Anthony.
Have you bought the Tesla tequila stuff that they have?
Dude, no, that was the one I missed out on. I should have.
Oh, I was, counting on you to buy that.
I know.
Of course.
I know.
Well, no. I honestly do. I appreciate you coming on. We could talk forever. I think it's only been an hour and a half almost. So that's breaking the record. This is my longest podcast.
Oh,
so
perfect.
Far.
Let's keep going then. I don't want anybody to top this.
I think we're golden. But I do appreciate you coming on. I think there's a lot of good nuggets for you guys out there that are listening. If you guys are thinking about getting into real estate, you're thinking about investing, shoot either one of us a DM. I know Jacob, he's a wealth of knowledge as well, and he'd be more than happy to respond to you guys. So, but just want to thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate your time. So,
don't listen to people who lose, or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed, go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger and start taking some of the blame. Let me put you on game. Control your emotions, most of the time it's really not worth it. Don't be ashamed and beat yourself up for not being perfect.